Now I can officially welcome you to our program this evening, Family Communication. My name is Chris with Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library, and I'm joined by Joanna Cordemanch from Hillsborough County Extension Services. How are you, Joanna?
I'm doing good. How's everybody else doing?
Doing great. We're looking forward to this information session. This program is part of our Libraries Build Communities initiative. These programs are aimed to help families in need. To find out more about that, you can visit our landing page at hcplc.org/librariesbuildcommunities. Also, we have a book shout out, and this is an ebook that you can check out from our Overdrive Libby Overdrive collection, our ebook collection. It's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. Now, this is available as an ebook, like I mentioned, through Overdrive, but to find out more about all of our books, you can search them at hcplc.org/books. All right, I'm going to give Joanna presenter control here so she can show her screen. And I am going to turn off my camera and microphone, but Joanna, I will be here in the background if you need me, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Chris. So if you can just confirm actually that you can see my screen.
Yes, we do see it.
Okay, great, awesome. All right, so as Chris mentioned, today we're going to talk about family communication, and this is kind of a popular topic, especially now with society. We're kind of shifting into the school year, and we've been in the school year for a bit, but one of the biggest things and one of the biggest concerns that I get with my families is asking me, Joanna, how can we better our communication within our family? So I like to start off with this quote, and this quote says, any problem, big or small, within a family always seems to start with bad communication. Someone isn't listening. So, and this is very true, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about active listening, but I want you guys to keep this in mind. So, as I said, my name is Joanna Cordemanch, and I am with the Hillsborough County Extension Service, and we do a lot of great programming within the community. But my specialty is human development, and alongside human development is improving our communication. So what are some of the topics that come along with effective communication, right? So it is said that 80% of our communication is actually nonverbal. So picking up on cues, picking up on behaviors, tone, demeanor, what have you. So that's very important. But oftentimes we put roadblocks into effective communication, and we're not able to effectively listen to the message that the sender is trying to send. And then a few other things is our parenting style does reflect upon our communication style. And then we'll go into wishing statements and authoritative statements later on. But I wanted to start off by kind of talking about my own family, right? So when I originally gave this presentation, I kind of wanted to sit back and analyze what my role is within my family. So I play several roles. I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a sister, I am peacemaker, I am a taxi driver, I am the cook. And I can assure you that most of you might relate to this because you play different roles, right? You wear many hats. So this is my family, but like I said earlier, there are a lot of communicational methods that are nonverbal. So 80% of our communication is nonverbal. So what happens when we're trying to pick up on cues? So if you notice here, and feel free to put in the chat box or unmute yourself if you want to mention, but what are these people communicating, right? What are these people communicating in these pictures? So in your top left, you see maybe she's really excited, maybe she's happy. Does anybody else want to volunteer and maybe just shout out, give it a try? What are these people communicating?
Pardon me, Joanna. Now, the attendees don't have camera or microphone access, but they can post to the questions. They can post to the question section. So feel free to post to the question section with your comments.
Sure. So yeah, go ahead and post it on there. What are these people communicating?
Looks like someone said a range of emotions between sadness and happiness.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got the girl in the center here. She looks very happy. The boy on the bottom here, he's kind of tearing up, so he's probably sad. And then you've got a father who might be giving their child a disciplinary lesson. So yeah, a range of emotions. And like you see here, a lot of our communication is nonverbal, and you guys were able to pick up on that. So good job. So what is effective listening, right? What is active listening? So communication is only effective when the sender sends them, or sorry, when the receiver gets the message that the sender intended to send, right? Because then the receiver can send effective feedback back to the sender. Now, this might seem a little complicated, but I want you guys to think in terms of your own family, right? So how you choose to communicate with your child or with your family will determine the type of relationship that you have with them. So if you are putting if you're putting roadblocks to effective listening, then you're not going to have effective communication. So someone might ask, well, what are these roadblocks, right? So it is said that we can speak at a rate of 400 words per minute. But oftentimes we only pick up on 125 words per minute. So what happens between that 125 words and the 400 words that we're able to understand? Well, we're putting roadblocks. So we're rehearsing what we're going to say next. Maybe we are inferring how that person is going to end their statement. Maybe we're distracted, right? In a world of social media and phones and whatnot, we're distracted. Another thing is for roadblocks is we often try to guess, right? So we're guessing at what the statement is going to be, or you're tired of hearing this person talk, so you're not going to go on with that. But there are roadblocks to effective communication. So like I said, why does it fail in a whole? So we assume what others know what we mean. How many of us have ended a statement with, you know? And I do it all the time. I'm guilty of it. But maybe that person doesn't actually know, right? So we try to fill in gaps, and we often get it wrong because that person actually intended to send a completely different message, but we're too busy making assumptions. And then another thing that I didn't touch up on is we don't ask questions to clarify. Oftentimes we might be too scared because we're not sure how that person will react, or they might think that we weren't listening, but asking questions to clarify is making sure that us as the receiver is getting that message that was intended to be sent. So like I said earlier, comparing, reading, rehearsing what we're going to say, filtering, daydreaming, identifying. This is one of the a big one that occurs in my family. We try to identify with the person, right? So we draw on our own experiences to identify and find common ground with that person. But sometimes people don't need that. Sometimes they just want someone to listen to them. Derailing, advising, sparring, and then always being right. So we're human and we tend to do these things, but being conscious about it is what's going to help us build onto our effective communication. So effective communication is as much about listening as it is about speaking. So you have to listen in order to be able to give feedback, and you have to be able to understand in order to reciprocate. So in terms of children, our children want to be heard, right? Oftentimes I think we make the mistake of not validating our children because we're so busy with life's demands. And this is normal, but for families, one of the things that I like to emphasize is really hear the message behind your child's words and behaviors. Sometimes they may be saying one thing, but what they're actually trying to tell you is they're sad, or they're very excited, or they're happy, or they need some more comfort. So really listening to their messages can tell you a lot about a child's behavior. In addition, it's very important for children to put a label on their feelings. So if they're sad, make it known that they're sad. If they're mad, make it known that they're mad. So identifying these feelings is going to help them with brain development later on and be able to use critical thinking as well as develop their frontal lobe, which is actually the last lobe to develop when it comes to child development. So putting a label on these feelings is very important. So for example, I know you're angry because you want to stay up late. So you're putting a label on the feeling, and the reason is because they wanted to stay up late. Another example is you wish you could ride your bike in the street. I understand you're disappointed. So obviously this is a safety concern, and the child is disappointed, and we're also sympathizing with the child. I understand, right? Does anybody have any questions so far?
No questions at this moment, but if you do have questions, you can post them in the question section, okay?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there is this spectrum. Let me get one second. All right, so there is this spectrum of, oh, there we go. So there's a spectrum of communication, and sometimes it can get very extreme, especially with families. So it can go from wishing to being very demanding, and this is kind of reflected in our own parenting style, but we're going to learn a little bit more about this. So what does wishing actually look like? Well, when we talk about wishing statements, you're sending a message to your child that he or she has a choice when in fact they don't. So you as a parent may come off as lacking authority and discipline, and your child is going to take advantage of that. So for example, it's time to turn off the TV, okay? So you're giving them a sense of, well, I don't have to turn off the TV now because you're not demanding that I turn the TV off. Another example is, why don't you hang this up now? Are you asking me to hang it up now, or do you want me to hang it up now? So if you guys notice, these are both wishing statements. I wish for you to do certain action, but I'm not asking you or demanding you to do the action. So we want to use authority. Obviously, we don't want to get to the demanding end of the spectrum, but we do want to use authority when we're communicating with our children. So tell the child exactly what you want him or her to do or not do. And by doing so, it gives the child no doubt that what his or her behavior should be is going to be expected. So, for example, a wishing statement would look something like, don't you think that's enough television for today? Versus an authoritative statement would look something like, you have watched enough television today, please turn it off. I'm telling you that you've watched enough television, and I'm asking you nicely to turn off the television. So there's a difference between wishing statements and authoritative statements. Let's look at another example here. So I want you guys to use the chat box or the question box, and I want you guys to rewrite these wishing statements. So let's start with the first one. Why don't you pick up your toys now? How can we rewrite this wishing statement into an authoritative statement? Anybody want to take a shot at it?
Let's see. Someone wrote, remember to pick up your toys off the floor.
Okay, so that would also be a wishing statement because you're not giving authority. So you're saying, remember to do it, not, can you please do it now, right? So, thank you for participating. Let's try and do the second one. So, would you like to put your shoes on now? How can we rewrite that wishing statement into an authoritative statement? So, thinking about placing some authority, and I want you guys to think of, we talk about SMART goals in academia all the time, right? So be specific, be measurable, have this goal be attainable. So, and also timely. So, would you like to put your shoes on? How can we rewrite that into an authoritative statement?
Let's see, they wrote, come here so I can help you put on your shoes.
Yeah, so you're asking the child to come here and you're going to do the act of putting their shoes on. Good job. Perfect. All right, so let's go with the last one. It's time to get in the car, okay? How could we rewrite that into an authoritative statement?
Someone just dropped the okay part. It says, it's time to get in the car.
Yeah, good example. Perfect. So yeah, you caught on to the okay. The okay is asking them, well, if you want to do it now, you can. If you don't want to, well, so be it. So perfect. Good job, guys. Thank you so much for participating. All right. So earlier I talked about our parenting style. And some of you might be familiar with parenting styles, but there are 4 different types of parenting styles. So you've got demanding, authoritative, balanced, and the last one, that's not coming to my mind right now, balanced, authoritative, demanding. The other one will come to me. But in this case, when we talk about communication, we don't want to end on that demanding end of the spectrum. And sometimes when you have a demanding parenting style, you're always going to be on that end of the spectrum. And that's a little bit extreme in terms of communication, right? So we want to try to have a balanced parenting style. So what does a demanding parenting style look like when it comes to communication? Well, oftentimes when we have a demanding parenting style, we're always using harsh words. Maybe we're always yelling. Maybe you're always negative. Maybe your way of discipline is insults or putting a child down, profanity, criticizing them. And then lastly, not listening to your child, right? Not listening to your child's needs or just not listening in general, right? Not actively listening like we talked about earlier. So we want to try to avoid this parenting style. Now, when I have my parents take a quiz as far as what type of parenting style they have, some have more than one parenting style, and that's okay. So we can have partial demanding parenting style, but when that is your sole parenting style, like you've heard the saying, too much of something is probably not good. So having too much of a demanding parenting style can negatively affect the child. All right, so when you have a demanding parenting style, what's likely to happen? Where your children aren't going to listen to you, right? They're going to tune you out, they're going to stop listening, or they might copy your behavior. And oftentimes when children see this as normal growing up, then they're going to have difficulty reaching milestones later on in life. So children who come from demanding parenting style homes are often the children who rebel, right? So they have difficulty keeping a relationship, difficulty keeping a steady job, difficulty with a mental health illness, because it can cycle into verbal abuse. So they also withdraw from the family, right? They don't want to be around anybody. They might become critical and negative. Their self-esteem might lower. And then, like I said earlier, they might become more rebellious, right? So they're just going to tend to lash out. And that might be on you as a parent, or it might be on their peers or their siblings, whoever their environment is surrounded with. So as we're making changes in our communication, we want to stop and think, right? As parents, oftentimes I think we give ourselves such a rush, right? We're always in a rush to get things done. We don't give ourselves enough time to think before we speak. So you want to give yourself some time before you say anything. And it's okay. You don't always need to respond immediately. So I want you guys, the next time that you're communicating with your children, to think about the consequences of your words and actions and how they're really going to affect your children. So how will he or she respond if I say this, right? How will she feel, or how will he feel if I say this? Maybe think about the golden rule, right? If I said this to my child, would I want my child to say this to me? So stop yourself. And sometimes you have to rephrase your words, your actions, and choose your tone carefully. Remember that, 80% of that communication is nonverbal. So the way that we approach our children to communicate also plays a big role. So when it comes to choices, you want to give children choices that you can live with, right? So choices are going to lead to better behavior. When children feel like they are empowered, like they have some sense of voice within their future or within the situation that is happening, they're more likely to comply. So offer choices that you know you have some control over and that gives the child the ability to think, right? So say for dinner, I give my child the choice between broccoli or green beans. At the end of the day, I know that I'm giving them a vegetable, but they get to choose, and it helps them have an active voice within your family. All right. So when you're communicating consequences, when it comes to choices, you want to be very clear. So, for example, would you rather clean your room today or rake the lawn so I'll have time to clean your room? You decide. You're giving them a choice, but at the end of the day, you're in control of the fact that they're going to help you out with one chore or the other. Another example would be, would you rather clean your room Saturday or Sunday? You know that it's going to get done over the weekend, but they have the liberty to choose what day, right? And then lastly, would you rather clean your room or hire me to do it with your money? You decide. You know, some families give allowance, but children are not going to respond to commands as effectively as they will to choices. So when they get to decide, you're more likely to get a better response. So some things to remember: choices and consequences. If your child doesn't choose, you as a parent should be prepared to choose for them. 2, be sure to pick choices that you can live with. You know, don't do something extreme. And then 3, never give a choice unless you are willing to allow your child to live with the consequences of his or her bad behavior. Another thing that I didn't mention was, when you're giving a child choices, make sure that these are age appropriate, right? So I wouldn't ask my 2-year-old to go cook a 5-course meal, right? That's a little extreme, but you guys get what I'm hinting at. All right. So, here are the 4 parenting styles. So permissive, helicopter, demanding, and balanced. So, for example, the permissive parent would say, I'm not capable of parenting you, right? These are the parents that are very relaxed. They let their children do as they please. Then you've got your helicopter parent. So you are not capable of making decisions. So the helicopter parent is going to make every single choice for the child, right? They're not going to let that child use their critical thinking skills, develop their frontal lobe, and be able to make decisions on their own. A demanding parent will say, I will make all the decisions because I'm the parent and that's that, right? So they're very demanding. And then lastly, the balanced parent, I will give you choices so you can learn how to make good decisions. So in a perfect world, everyone would be a balanced parent, and we might have a little bit of one or another. But when you're too much of one, it can be harmful and detrimental to the child's development. So lastly, I want to touch up on fighting words versus thinking words. So fighting words are those words that are going to incite a fight with our children, versus thinking words, let the child think on their own, right? Use that critical thinking. So for example, fighting words, telling the child what to do. Get to work and clean your room now. So if I'm demanding that the child cleans their room now, are they likely to comply with that? Especially it being that demanding of an order, versus if I say, feel free to go out and play as soon as you have cleaned your room. So you can go out and play, but I would just like for you to clean your room, right? So I'm letting them think, hey, I have to do this before I can go out and play. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Looks like we're running out of time, but I want to take any questions. I know this is a popular topic, and I want to take any questions that you guys might have when it comes to communication, or maybe, you know, you guys have had some communication issues at home and you want to bring it up. Feel free to put that in the question box now, and we can talk a little bit about it, and I'll try my best to answer any questions that you guys might have.
All right. Let me go ahead and turn our cameras back on.
Sure.
And like Joanna said, yeah, it's time to post your questions if you have some in the questions section of your control panel, or again, if you're watching on a tablet or a phone, there's a question mark icon, so feel free to post them. It looks like we do have some questions coming in.
Sure.
One person says, sometimes I'm told I'm too quiet when listening to my child, even though I am listening. Do you recommend any tips for me to use to break the silence?
So you're told, who exactly, if you can just give me a little bit more background, who exactly is telling you you're too quiet? Or
Their child, I'm sorry, it's their child who's telling.
their child, okay. Gotcha. So there's nothing wrong with being quiet. I would just make sure that your child knows that you are trying to effectively listen to them, right? So give mom or dad some time to think before I answer so that we can make an appropriate decision, right? So if you're quiet, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but helping them understand that the way that you respond to things might not be the same way that they respond to things, right? Because children want things now, especially children nowadays, teenagers, that's another story, right? But they want things now in their hands. And so it's a lot easier for a child to say, well, you know, I want my response now, because especially if it involves doing a chore or receiving something, maybe a compensation, they want an answer right then and there. So just making sure that they're aware that you need to reflect on a conversation before you can give them a response, and that is totally normal and healthy. Yeah.
Right. All right. Someone is asking if there's a quiz that they can take to determine what type of parent they are.
Yes.
Those 4 examples.
Yes, there's definitely a quiz that you can take. I will put my email here. Let me see. Yeah, I will put my email in the chat box. And if you want to follow up in an email with me, I can send you a quiz that I have. And let's see.
That would be great. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I misspelled that. Give me 1 second. Oh. I missed a part. It's the second email, guys. But yeah, if you want to follow up in an email with me, I also have another quiz that talks about the 5 love languages of our children. And there's a good book by Dr. Gary Chapman that talks about the 5 love languages when it comes to communication. So I can send that over to you as well. But yeah, if you guys, have any other questions for me, always feel free to reach out to me. We're a free community resource for parents. So yeah.
That's great. Looks like we have just another question here.
Sure.
They're saying sometimes things escalate when I'm talking with my child. Is it okay to say, let's take a break when we calm down, or will this cause more issues?
No, I think that is a great tactic to use. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be with children. Sometimes my husband and I get into a tiff, and that's a great way to say, let's calm down because my feelings are speaking before, I can think about it, right? So you're letting your feelings and your emotions, at the moment, you're going to be angry, you're going to be frustrated, you're feeling all this rush of emotion. So you're letting that speak for you, when in reality, you might say something that you don't mean, right? And you might end up hurting the child's feelings, or they might hurt your feelings. So that's a really good tactic to use, especially with children, is let's calm down, let's take a break, and then we can regroup in a little bit. Sometimes children need a specific, let's regroup in 30 minutes, let's regroup in an hour, to know, okay, they can process their feelings. And it's a part of, earlier I spoke about brain development, but part of that is being able to process feelings, right? So they're using that critical thinking, that higher order thinking in their frontal lobe. And oftentimes when I talk to my parents, especially those that have teenagers, that is the last part of the brain to develop. So it takes a lot longer for children to understand, all right, if we're taking a break to kind of decompress and come to terms with what we're talking about, well, am I going to be able to talk about it later? And sometimes children forget, they get over it. But it is very important to take a break, especially when emotions are high. Yeah.
My feelings are speaking. I like that. I like
Yes.
that. That's great. All right, we have time for one more question. Let's see.
Sure.
When we ask my child not to do something, the child usually gets angry and says they don't want to do anything and throws a tantrum. In those situations, do you have any simple recommendations that might be helpful?
Sure. So one of the things that I have actually seen a lot of research being done on is getting to their level. So especially for younger kids, if they throw tantrums, they throw themselves on the floor, they're crying, get on their level. Let them know that you understand that they're frustrated. Validate their feelings. And we talked about this earlier, but putting a label to their feelings is very important, because knowing why they are angry is going to help you as a parent be able to process what they're feeling, but also be able to parent effectively, right? So if you don't put a label on their feelings, oh, well, they're just throwing another tantrum, no big deal, they do this all the time. But they might be angry at something else that may not even be related to you asking them not to do something. So getting to the bottom of that is very important, but get on their level. Sometimes it might even take you getting on the floor with them, letting them know you're here for them, letting you know you understand that they're disappointed that they couldn't do something, but at the end of the day, life goes on. But validating their feelings is very important.
Okay, someone's asking where the email address is. I'm going to go ahead and copy it as a response to their question,
Sure.
just in case. There is a chat section if you don't see it there, but I'm going to copy this as a response to you right now. There you go.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
feel free, guys, to email me there, and I can give you all my contact information. You know, we're constantly having parenting programs available for parents if, you want to explore that a little bit more. But feel free to reach out to me.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that is it for our questions. Thank you so much, Joanna, and thank you everyone who came and listened. It was very useful information. If you'd like to contact the library, you can call us at the number here on the screen, 813-273-3652, or go online at hcplc.org/contact. Excuse me. Also on our website, you can submit your library story. Share how the library's touched your life at hcplc.org/stories. And also, while you're at our website, you can check out our upcoming events and classes like this one. All right. Well, with that, again, I say thank you to you, Joanna, and thank you everyone who's joined us. I hope you all have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye.